Before there was form, there was confusion. The Hebrew text calls it tohu va-vohu, a phrase so old it resists perfect translation. Some render it as formless and void, others as chaotic and unfilled. It suggests not nothingness, but rather a world without borders, without purpose, a canvas blurred by shadow and silence. Over this indistinct mass lay the tehom, the deep waters. To the ancient Hebrews, the deep was not merely an expanse of liquid. It was a vast abyss, a dark reservoir of primordial energy. Later traditions would describe the tehom as inhabited, a place where sea monsters dwelled, Leviathan, Rechab, Tanin, beings of chaos older than order itself. And hovering above this ocean of uncertainty was Ruach Elohim, the breath or wind of God. The verb used here, merechefet, is delicate, almost avian, fluttering. Like the wings of a bird trembling over its nest, the spirit hovers over the waters. Already there is a tension between chaos below and the possibility of life above. Then the first words of power is spoken, Yehi, or let there be light. Notice that in the story, light does not destroy the darkness. Instead, Elohim separates the two, setting a boundary. From this moment onward, creation is not the annihilation of chaos, but the drawing of distinctions, light from dark, day from night, waters above from waters below. The firmament, the rachia, is especially curious. In Hebrew thought, it was envisioned as a vast dome, hammered thin like a sheet of metal, holding back the celestial waters. In other words, the sea is not just below us, it is above us as well. The sky itself, in this worldview, is an ocean suspended overhead, restrained only by the vault of heaven. This is a crucial point. In Genesis, creation is never final. The waters are not eliminated, they are only structured. Chaos remains, waiting just beyond the border of chaos. The sea is there at the beginning, and it lingers, patient, beneath and above. It is a deep memory of the world, older even than the stars. And so, the pattern is established.
Praise the Lord who made the Leviathan to play in the sea.
In September 2020, I decided to move away from my old ways. The echoes of that life lingered, but I was taking steps. I even eventually, later on, shaved off my hair. A small symbolic severing of what had been, and I thought that would be the end of it. I did not yet understand how deep the relationship between symbol and soul runs. You might think it was merely an aesthetic decision, a new look, a fresh start. But the scalp remembers ritual. The act had teeth. It was a symbolic cutting, a surrender. What I did not foresee was how habits of the soul would insist on being addressed with symbols, how mere gestures open deeper doors. I began to take my practice seriously. I studied yoga, magic, and the religions of the world. My mind, once scattered, found a kind of tuning. Slowly I became aware of a spiritual reality humming just under ordinary life. The consequences of my actions, the karma that had been quietly arranging my circumstances. The process amplified my disturbances. I was, by my own admission, an utter asshole, and in many ways I still am. That discovery is painful, but it also is the very oxygen of change. The work made that clear. That clarity was the point. Through observation, we reduced chaos. Aligning with the will of the Most High became compelling. It became my life. You see, consciousness is not merely knowledge of the world, it is the literal waters that when in flow repatterns, but also can destroy. Observation itself simplifies chaos. When you stop reacting and begin to witness, the frantic energy that fuels turmoil loses its leverage. Though looking back, it seems foolish and holy all at once. Foolish to think a few rituals could rewrite decades of pattern. Holy because sometimes the worst inclinations are the cartographers that lead us to the foot of the holy mountain.
Praise the Lord who made the Leviathan to play in the sea.
Play. The psalm invites us to imagine the divine not as an austere tyrant, but as the cosmic parent who creates beings to romp in the ocean of being. If God made the Leviathan to play, perhaps our deepest shadows are not only obstacles but also playmates, features in extravagant disguises. And what of Sheol and chaos? The underworld language points to the ground of being where forms dissolve and are remade. Chaos is not punitive, it is protean. The mystic's job is not to fix chaos away, but to learn the dance inside it. So what is the practice? It is simple and stubborn. Establish a ritual frame. Use symbols like shaving the head, reciting a song, lighting a candle to focus attention. Study your dreams. Watch how your angers move like a wave. Ask, where does this arise? Who benefits when I remain the author of my old dramas? Ironic, is it? If you do this, gradually your life's orchestra will retune. The beast in the deep will stop trampling the shore of your days. They will begin, perhaps, to play. What I was told about my last video was that people weren't ready for it. Well, I have the feeling that this one, even for me, will truly go over people's heads. But when the Holy Spirit keeps placing the subject in the mind's eye, I guess it would be foolish to pass by and ignore it. As Carl Jung once famously said, people don't have ideas. Ideas have you.
Genesis chapter 1, verse 21. So God created the great sea creatures and every living thing that moves, with which the waters teemed according to their kinds, and every winged bird after its kind, and God saw that it was good.
I was a machine back then, a blessed, dangerous machine. Prayer, asana, ritual, mantra. I fed them all into the same grinder and let the noise grind me down until only something shaped like formation and light remained. After one of those relentless vinyasa sessions, I lay down in corpse pose, the kind of stillness that feels less like rest than like waiting for a verdict. My window always did its own thing. I had tied knots in its sash like a barbarian trying to hold back a tide. The knots were ugly, practical, almost criminal. They kept it from slamming into the neighbor's glass. Still, the windows always found a way to make it wiggle. That day, the wind came through like a curious animal, and the window wiggled in a slow, proud way. A thin shaft of sun reflected off the window, moving across the ceiling and landed on my face. A clean, lazy beam that might have been nothing, except at this point, I was getting used to nothing meaning everything. At the time, I thought it was nothing but a light being demanding my attention, not the reflection from the window. A hello, a flicker, I thought, okay, fine, another light being thing. I had my share of those. A few had terrified me, some had delighted me. But this one flickered like it had a plan. The light magnified into a beam and warmed my forehead until it felt as if someone had cupped a small, fierce coal there. I could have opened my eyes, I could have flinched. Instead, I lay very still. Maybe vanity. A story I could tell, maybe curiosity. Maybe something worse. A stubbornness to see what came next. Then the room hummed. Not a hum like an appliance, but a hum that lived in the bones. My hands buzzed, my teeth buzzed. There's a particular kind of vibration that says, the boundary you thought you had is false. The air under my ribcage changed its texture. I felt the floor drop away the way you feel a stair drop away if you miscount while walking in the dark. And the whales came. They did not sneak in like animals, they arrived like geological facts. The vision, if that is what you call it, opened behind my eyes with a sound like a distant bell, and then filled me whole. Dolphins braided through light like ribbons. Whales unfolded like slow, sad mountains. They blew noise that was not noise, and that oddly meant something. It was not a picture you watch from a distance. It was an immersion. I was on the mat, in the beam, and also very thoroughly in another ocean whose horizons were older than my name. Time lost its edges. Minutes stretched, folded, rewound. I can't tell you how long it lasted, because while I was having it, the world went on being itself, and after, the world kept being it. But something had rewritten the footnote. I slowly came back to just being in my room. I got back up, the vision burned into my memory, my forehead unscathed, and I saw the light reflecting off my window. I realized what had just happened. My vigorous practice was making me realize how much the personal weather could affect the external one. I wasn't pestered by some astral entity manifesting into my temple, but something more dangerous. The weather, the sun, land, my home lining up just right to affect me in such a haunting way that I would never forget. I laughed it off. I took note of it and went on with my life. I laughed because what else do you do with the thing that could flatten you? Only later did the consequences unspool like a rope. You want to know about priming, about how your childhood tastes become the scaffolding for your destiny. Final Fantasy summons and Neon Genesis Evangelion weren't just media. They were instruction manuals folded into bedtime. They gave me metaphors, yes, but metaphors that would one day feel like tools. Leviathan as a summon from Final Fantasy was an image I carried around as a small private religion. The West Coast pull, the Pacific that haunted every postcard in my adolescent brain, those weren't coincidences. They were a slow arrangement, a tuning of my life toward water, image, and guardian. The vision didn't explain itself. It didn't hand me a manual or a neat moral. It gave me something colder and truer, a recognition. You could call it a calling if you liked the word. You could call it a wound. Either way, it reshaped the way things fit. The cross I'd been wearing, the things I resented even before I understood why, turned, over time, into an instrument I could actually play. It taught me how to stop being so dramatic about being saved and start being practical about being present. I didn't realize how much the culture and the media I was consuming as a child to now was priming me for my next stage in life, whether I chose to embrace it or not. I was in the thralls of mythologizing my personal life and co-creating my story with Source. A cross I chose to bear before I was even born slowly became the very thing that gave me excitement, compared to what I used to loathe it. And always beneath everything, the ocean, enormous and different, strangely intimate. The whales weren't there to terrify me. They were ambassadors from a place where scale dissolves and shame looks ridiculous. They taught me how small drama looks under weather that big. That's the thing about strange gifts. You don't get them once and understand them. They arrive. They rearrange the furniture of your days and then make demands. They want ritual, attention, confession of the sort that is almost practical. They demand you keep showing up. So I did. I showed up. I practiced until I could spare a laugh for the beam of sunlight reflected from that frustrating window. I practiced until what had been terror began to taste like a possibility.
Job 41. Can you pull in Leviathan with a hook or tie down his tongue with a rope? Can you put a cord through his nose or pierce his jaw with a hook? Will he beg you for mercy or speak to you softly?
Behold, there shall a whale come from the east.
In the vision, the prophet encounters a naked old man. This figure is identified as John D. Asked why he is unclothed, he replies,
Lo, I am old and without garments.
Together they find a child identified as Edward Kelly. This child insists,
I am a man.
But when challenged to climb a great hill, he falters and weeps, showing his weakness. To test him further, the prophet commands,
Look into the sun.
The child does so without flinching, and it is declared that he will, in time, become a man. The prophet then arms D with pen, ink, and paper, tools of a scribe, and tells him to wait with the child until his maturity. Meanwhile, the prince, whom the angels call the devil, learns of the prophecy and fears the coming whale. His ministers search but find only a marble stone. He himself collects the child. He clothes him in strange garments, tempts him with pleasures, and opens him to the secret knowledge of his kingdom. But in doing so, the devil undermines his own reign, as the prophet Danita observes.
The king hath risen up against himself. He hath chosen the chosen, and opened the secrets of his own kingdom to his destruction.
This vision, preserved in D's spiritual diaries, places the whale as both a harbinger of destruction and a vessel of revelation. The Leviathan transformed into an emblem of God's spirit breaking into the world. These images came to John Dee and Edward Kelly in the late 16th century. Dee was Queen Elizabeth's trusted advisor, mathematician, and navigator. Kelly, his scryer, claimed to see and hear angels directly. Together, they recorded thousands of words of what they believed to be the angelic revelation, the foundation of the system now known as Enochian magic. The vision of the whale from the east was one of their most dramatic, a prophecy of destruction and renewal, echoing apocalyptic texts of the Bible.
Can you pull in Leviathan with a hook, or tie down his tongue with a rope? Will he make a covenant with you so that you may take him as a servant forever? Nothing on earth is his equal, a creature without fear. He looks down on all that are haughty. He is king over all that are proud. Here, as in Dee's vision, the great sea beast is not merely a monster. It is the limit of human control, the embodiment of divine power, and the threshold between man's small dominion and God's immeasurable authority. The book of Job reminds us that Leviathan is not a pet. It is not something you could tie down or bargain with. And this is the problem with the human mind. We want to domesticate the cosmos. We want the ocean in a teacup, the storm in a spreadsheet, God on a leash. But the great sea beast won't play by those rules. It is, after all, God's own plaything, created to sport in the sea, which is to say, even the monsters are a part of the divine comedy. Now, when John Dee and Edward Kelly had their vision of the whale from the east, they were touching the same mystery. They saw it as apocalypse, the spirit of a god arriving in a shape so vast it destroyed kingdoms. But it is the same story Job was told, the creature at the edge of control, the force you cannot capture, but which, paradoxically, carries revelation. And then, in a quiet yoga room centuries later, I too was visited by whales. Not Dee's angelic prophecies, not Job's terrifying Leviathan, but something stranger. A pot of beings vast and tender, sliding through my mind as if they had always lived there. You see, whether it's Dee in the 16th century, or Job in the desert, or me on a yoga mat, the pattern is the same. The ocean erupts inside us, the beast arrives, and it is never about control. It is about recognition. The symbol is consistent. Whales, Leviathan, dragons, serpents. What they represent is not destruction alone, but the deeper current of reality. The energy that undoes your ego so you can finally see. And the joke, if there is one, is this. The very thing you fear, the beast from the sea, the chaos of your unconscious, the devil's own temptations, is often the thing that delivers you. The devil, remember, in Dee's vision, educates Kelly. He arms him with knowledge, and in doing so, undermines his own dominion. The whale in Job terrifies man, but delights God. So perhaps the true lesson is this: the monsters are not mistakes, they are instruments. They are, in fact, necessary. To confront them is a step beyond the tidy little game of me versus the world. To confront them is to realize that the very forces that undo you are the same forces that awaken you. And if God laughs while Leviathan plays in the sea, perhaps we too are invited to laugh even as the whales breach through the dark waters of our own minds.
In the Hebrew scriptures, Leviathan is never just a beast. He is the embodiment of chaos, the great dragon of the deep, the enemy of divine order. Psalm 74 declares, "You divided the sea by your strength. You smashed the heads of dragons of the sea. You crushed the heads of Leviathan. You fed him to the creatures of the desert. Here, Leviathan is not merely defeated, but humiliated, his carcass becoming food for the wilderness. This is a reoccurring theme, chaos destroyed so that creation can flourish. In the apocryphal second Esdras, we read another vision. You ordained 2 living creatures, the one you called Enoch and the other Leviathan, and you separated the one from the other. Unto Leviathan you gave the 7th part, namely the moist, and have kept him to be devoured of whom you will and when. 2 Esdras, chapter 6, verse 49 to 52. Leviathan is here preserved, restrained in the watery abyss, destined for a cosmic meal at the appointed time. In Revelation 12, the image returns in another form. Then another sign appeared in heaven, a huge red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. The echoes are unmistakable. Leviathan's 7 heads now crowned in apocalyptic fire, the beast 666. Taken together, these texts reveal Leviathan as more than myth. He is a symbol of the untamed depths, restrained, broken, preserved, and yet always threatening to return.
Consider this. The Hebrew word for Messiah, or Mashiach, equals 358. The Hebrew word for serpent, Neshash, also equals 358. Numbers 21, verse 8 to 9. And the Lord said unto Moses, Make thee a fiery serpent, and set it upon a pole, and it shall come to pass, that every one that is bitten, when he looketh upon it, shall live. And Moses made a serpent of brass, and put it on a pole. And it came to pass, that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived. Mashiach and serpent, redeemer and adversary, 2 opposites sharing the same numerical essence. The implication is staggering. The very force that appears to oppose redemption contains hidden within it the secret of redemption itself. Like how the word curse contains the word cure. This paradox resonates the words of Isaiah. How have you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the dawn? Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. The lightbringer cast down becomes indistinguishable from the chaos serpent, and yet hidden in this fall, a reflection of the light of salvation remains. To confront Leviathan, then, is not only to confront chaos, it is to glimpse the strange union of destruction and redemption, of serpent and savior. In myth, Leviathan belongs to the abyss, but in Kabbalah, the abyss is not far away, it is within the human being. Humanity has long been described as the axis mundi, the pillar between heaven, earth, and the underworld. We stand at the intersection of realms, the fragile bridge between the divine order above and the churning chaos below. My own vision of the angel Raziel and the 72 names of God, a vision I briefly described in my earlier work, revealed this same truth. That to drag oneself out of the underworld is not to escape chaos, but to bring its energy into alignment with heaven's order. This is why Leviathan matters. He's not only a monster of the sea, he's the shadow beneath our own consciousness. To wrestle Leviathan is to wrestle with ourselves, and to take our place as the axes where heaven, world, and hell converge. Numbers in the ancient mind were not abstractions, they were living realities. The structure of the cosmos, the language of angels, the very breath of creation. And the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them, and the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel, and it was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel, and it was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that the one came not near the other all the night. And Moses stretched out his hands over the sea, and Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. 6 plus 6 equals 12. 12 multiplied by 6 equals 72. This simple progression conceals one of the deepest mysteries of Jewish mysticism. There are 72 names of God, the Shem HaMefarash, derived from a cryptic reading of Exodus 14. The passage that describes the parting of the Red Sea by writing the 3 consecutive verses bostrofedonically, one left to right, the next right to left, and the next left to right again, the letters align into 72 triplets. These triplets are said to be the very names by which God rules creation. A different numeric route, 12 times 6 equals 72. Permutations of the tetragrammaton. Another classical way to see 72 is via permutations of forms of the tetragrammaton. Kabbalistic treatments list 12 permutations of the letters Yod, He, Vav, He. Arrangements like Yod, He, Vav, He, Yod, Vav, He, Yod, Vav, He, etc. And for each there are 6 micro permutations or fillings considered, yielding 12 times 6 equals 72 triads in one system of mapping. This is an alternative conceptual route to 72 that ties back directly to the permutations of the base name. Side note on the number 6, Vav, the letter Vav equals 6 in gematria, and is traditionally read as a hook or conjunction, the letter that links heaven and earth, the grammar and metaphor of and. That's part of why counts like 6, 12, 72 carry symbolic weight. 6 connects 12, multiplies, 72 extends. The 72 also mirrors its opposite, the Ars Goetia, a grimoire of medieval magic, catalogs 72 demons, distorted reflections of the divine names, order and chaos, mirrored in the same numbers. Leviathan, the chaos serpent, embodies this tension. He is the unparted sea, the undivided waters, but through the 72-fold name, chaos itself becomes divided, patterned, made subject to divine will. Here, number becomes myth, and myth becomes law. In the very verse where Moses crosses the sea with his people, I learned the codes to cross my own personal Red Sea.
In the Apocalypse of Abraham, chapter 21, it reads, "And I looked beneath the expanse at my feet, and I saw the likeness of heaven and what was therein. And I saw there was the earth and its fruits, and its moving ones, and its spiritual ones, and its hosts of men and their spiritual impieties, and their justifications, and the pursuits of their works, and the abyss and its torment, and its lower depths, and the perdition which is in it. And I saw there the sea and its islands, and its animals and its fishes, and Leviathan and his spouse, and his lair, and his dens, and the world which lies upon him, and his motions, and the destruction of the world because of him." In the Apocalypse of Abraham, another figure emerges, the angel Yehoel. His name fuses the sacred tetragrammaton, the ineffable name of God, with the syllable El, the mark of angels. Yehoel appears as a mediator, a being who stands at the threshold between God and creation. He teaches Abraham the celestial liturgy, and he is described as the one who has power over Leviathan. This is significant. Leviathan is not destroyed by human effort nor by brute force, but only through a mediator, an angel who bridges the gap between the Most High and the chaos below. In later traditions, Yehoel is often identified with Metatron, the angel of the presence, the guide of mystics. If this is true, then Leviathan becomes not only an adversary, but a gatekeeper. To approach the divine, one must first face the serpent, and only through angelic mediation can one pass.
The myth of Leviathan did not remain confined to scripture. It passed into ritual, into the hidden currents of magical practice. In the magical Kabbalah, the 6th and 7th books of Moses, a text drawn from Jewish mystical lore, but filtered through centuries of European occultism, we find Leviathan invoked directly. One passage, known as T4 excerpt, describes an exorcism where the chaos serpent is named and confronted, restrained through sacred formulas. Here, Leviathan is not only the adversary of God in mythic poetry, he is treated as a real spiritual force, one that must be bound and commanded in the name of the Most High. The ritual becomes a reenactment of the primordial drama, order subduing chaos, word triumphing over the abyss. What is striking is that even in this magical context, Leviathan is never annihilated. He is restrained, redirected, exorcised, but never erased. This mirrors the deeper truth that chaos itself is eternal, necessary, a backdrop against which order can reveal its light. And the Leviathan is not unique to the Hebrew imagination. Every culture has wrestled with its own serpent of chaos. In Hindu thought, creation itself is a dance of opposites. Shiva and Shakti, destruction and energy, singularity and multiplicity. The alchemists of the West captured the same principle in a simple symbol, a circle with a dot in its center, the sun. The dot is singularity, the circle, multiplicity. Thomas Hobbes, writing in the 17th century, invoked Leviathan to describe not a monster of the sea, but the state itself, a body made of countless individuals, terrifying in its scale, held together only by sovereign will, chaos transmuted into political order. And in Kabbalah, the image becomes yet more precise. Microprospios and microprospios, the great and the small face of God. The Latin phrase echoes, quod superius, sicut quod inferius, as above, so below. All of these are attempts to describe the same paradox. Chaos and order, multiplicity and unity, above and below. Leviathan is simply our own shadow of it, a reminder that creation is never one-sided. It is always the play of opposites.
Psalm 104, verse 26. Praise the Lord who made the Leviathan to play in the sea. It is a staggering image, not Leviathan crushed, but Leviathan bound, not Leviathan feared, but Leviathan at play, chaos turned into delight of God. Which brings us to the flood, to Noah, and to the fish gods of the ancient world. For if Leviathan is the symbol of chaos contained, then the flood is chaos unbound, a world drowned, reset, made anew. And beyond Noah, beyond the ark, we find myths of great fish spirits and amphibious teachers. From Atlantis of Mesopotamia to the Apkallu sages, ancient beings said to rise from the waters to instruct mankind.
A bearded old man building a big boat in the rain. But the real story, the one buried in the Tanakh, in the book of Enoch, and whispered in the Ark of Baphomet, is stranger than you've been told. This was a time when giants walked the earth, not just tall men, but towering beings of mixed blood, the offspring of watchers and women. The texts speak of chimera roaming the land, abominations of mixed flesh, lion and eagle, serpent and man. Things you might mistake for myth if they weren't orally passed down by people who swore they seen them. And into this world, Noah is born. Or they are born. Because the original scripture doesn't always call Noah a he. Sometimes the pronouns shift, almost like scribes themselves weren't sure. Hermaphroditic, divine, something else. It would explain a lot. Like why Ham, Noah's son, thought he could cross the line after finding Noah drunk and naked in his tent. An act so severe that it fractured the family forever. Even Noah's father, Lamech, looked at his newborn child and felt terror. He said, "This one is not like us." His eyes shined. He thought his wife had been seduced by a Beni Elohim, a son of God. That's how strange things were. The Watchers didn't walk the earth no more, but the blood of heaven still mingled with the soil. This wasn't the gardening. This was chaos. And God looked down and saw what had become of creation. The word used is not wicked in the sense of petty crime, it's corruption. Genetic, moral, spiritual, everything mingled with everything. No clear lines left. Chaos manifested. So God did what ancient gods always do when chaos swallows order. He sent water, not fire, yet. That comes later. But water, the great eraser. The flood would cleanse, drown, and scatter. The giants, the chimera, the hybrid on the land would become disembodied spirits. Some call them demons now, but those who could live in the depths, they survived. They always survive. And out of the water came the next age of temptation, ocean gods and fish kings, amphibious sages rising from the depths to whisper knowledge to humanity again. The same pattern repeats. Divine beings, the sea, forbidden knowledge. What was the purpose? The Ark. Everyone thinks they know it. A children's story painted on Sunday school and nursery walls. Animals marching 2 by 2. But in James True's book, The Ark of Baphomet, it is something stranger, something more terrifying, and something more necessary. The Ark is not just a boat, it's a seed of order floating on the black waters of chaos. A capsule of survival, designed not only to preserve life but to reboot it. Think of the waters not as rain, but as primordial chaos. The return of the deep, the home of Genesis, the abyss. Everything dissolves back into formlessness except for the Ark. The Ark is one thing that floats above, untouched. James True says the Ark is Baphomet, not in the satanic sense, but as a symbol of union. Male and female, heaven and earth, chaos and order, all fuse inside a wooden womb. Noah himself may have embodied this duality, hermaphroditic, neither purely male nor female. The Ark, then, is a mirror of Noah, an androgynous vessel holding all possibility, able to survive dissolution because they carry both polarities. The Ark endures because it must, because it is more than wood and pitch. It is a symbol of containment, of gestation. The flood was not only destruction, it was baptism of the world. Out of the waters came a new covenant, a new humanity, and the promise that the cycle would one day repeat, only next time with fire. And the Ark becomes the prototype of every survival myth that follows. The Sumerian Zeusustra, Utnapishtim of Gilgamesh. Even the vessels of modern science fiction, the generational starship, drifting through the void, carrying DNA samples and embryos, waiting for a new Earth to seed. It is always the same story. The Ark is the capsule of possibility, the last candle held against the wind. What does this mean for us? It means the Ark is more than history, it's a pattern. It's a survival instinct of humanity itself. We build arcs every time we write a book, carve a symbol, pass on a myth, or encode a gene. Each arc is a message through the flood. Remember, begin again. 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 Remember.
Oannes of Babylonia. From the waters of the Persian Gulf emerged Oannes, half man, half fish. By the day he walked among humans clothed in scales, teaching them writing, mathematics, agriculture, and law. At night he returned to the sea, his true home. Oannes represents civilization's debt to the abyss, knowledge rising from the deep. Dagon, Philistia and Mesopotamia. Worshipped as a fish god or merman, Dagon's cult stretched from Mesopotamia to the Philistines. Associated with fertility, grain, and water, he embodies the union of land and sea, the way oceans bring life to dry ground. In the Bible, Dagon falls before the Ark of the Covenant, a clash between Yahweh and the gods of the deep. The Apkallu, Mesopotamia. Semi-divine sages, described as part fish, part man, sent by the god Enki to teach humanity arts, crafts, and sacred knowledge. Some texts describe them as guardians, others as corruptors, a dual nature, benefactor and tempter. The Undines, European lore. In Paracelsian alchemy, Undines are elemental water spirits, feminine, beautiful, and elusive. They embody the vitality and danger of the waters. They can marry humans, but to gain a soul requires sacrifice. Their story is one of longing, liminality, and peril. Tiamat, the Babylonian myth. The primordial chaos dragon of the sea, slain by the storm god Marduk. Her body becomes the firmament of the heavens and the foundations of the earth. Tiamat is the archetype of the chaos waters. Destruction, yes, but also the womb of creation. Matsya, Hindu tradition. An avatar of Vishnu who appears as a great fish, Matsya warns the ancient king Manu of impending flood, instructing him to build a boat, a parallel to Noah's Ark. In Hindu cosmology, the flood becomes renewal, and Matsya is savior and guide through chaos. Sedna, Inuit myth. Goddess of the sea and mother of marine animals, betrayed and cast into the ocean by her father, her fingers become seals, whales, and fish. Hunters must appease Sedna to ensure success, combing her hair in ritual to ease her rage. She is both provider and punisher. From Babylon to the Arctic, the ocean is never empty. It is the home of gods, monsters, teachers, and tempters. Always the same pattern: the deep gives and the deep takes away. Civilization itself has been shaped by the whispers of the waters. The parallels extend into the modern age as well. For me, they appeared first through stories and images, in games and anime, in myths half forgotten but always alive beneath the surface. But then they came through the work of John C. Lilly, the scientist, mystic, and psychonaut, who believed that dolphins were gateways to other forms of intelligence. In his book, The Deep Self, Lilly described how the human mind, like the ocean, hides its most profound mysteries below the surface. Today we know that the brains of whales and dolphins are vast, intricate, and in many ways beyond our comprehension. These creatures may not build ships or towers, but they carry a kind of intelligence alien to us, yet intimately connected to the sea from which we also came. They are living parables of Leviathan, strange, immense, playful, yet capable of unfathomable depth. The ancient gods never really left us. They just changed form, resurfacing in culture, arts, and science. We don't build temples to Oannes or Tiamat anymore, but their shadows appear in the stories we tell, the games we play, and even in our experiments with the mysteries of the mind. Neon Genesis Evangelion, 1995. A post-apocalyptic anime drenched in biblical and Kabbalistic imagery. Humanity battles against towering beings called angels, many of them emerging from the sea. One angel is literally named Leviathan in concept art, a reminder that the ocean remains the birthplace of apocalypse in the collective imagination. The show asks, are these beings monsters or are they gods? We simply cannot understand. The question is often even turned around on the human characters themselves, using Freudian and Jungian psychology and Kabbalistic plus Christian imagery to express deep psychological traumas within the human psyche. In the Final Fantasy series, Leviathan is a recurring summon, a colossal sea serpent unleashed to flood the battlefield. As a child, these images primed an entire generation to see water not as passive, but as weaponized chaos. Summons like Leviathan echo the Apkallu, powers drawn from the deep, called upon by humans, half protector and half destroyer. A Sega game that begins with playful swimming and suddenly shifts into cosmic horror. Echo travels through time, encounters alien intelligences, and discovers the ocean itself is a battleground of survival. This wasn't just a game about dolphins. It was a myth about the ocean as a cosmic stage, echoing ancient flood narratives and the fear of the unknown abyss. Neuroscientist, dolphin researcher, and psychonaut believed dolphins and whales were intelligent beings capable of communication with humans, even across altered states. Conducted radical experiments, sensory deprivation tanks, psychedelic states, and direct attempts at dolphin-human communication. In his book, The Deep Self, Lilly describes the mind as an ocean, vast, layered, and accessible only when one dives beneath the surface. For Lilly, dolphins were not animals in tanks. They were emissaries of a consciousness we had barely begun to grasp.
John C. Lilly, the maverick neuroscientist, once said that studying their brains was like staring into an alien cathedral. The structures were vast, folded, intricate in ways we still barely understand. A dolphin's brain is larger than ours in proportion to its body. The neocortex, responsible for thought and perception, is dense with folds, rippling like the sea itself. Their limbic system, the seat of emotion, is immense, suggesting an inner life as rich and stormy as our own. Whales, too, carry these cavernous minds, for not for cities and machines, but for oceans that span Earth. John C. Lilly believed dolphins were not simply animals. They were a civilization of the sea, one that communicated through whistles, clicks, and body language. A language layered and multidimensional, more like a song than speech. He imagined their conversations rippling across miles of ocean, an acoustic web older than our pyramids, older than our scriptures. And then there are the whales. Blue whales, whose hearts are the size of small cars, send out songs that can travel hundreds of miles through the deep. Imagine that, a single voice echoing across an entire ocean basin. These songs are not random, they shift, evolve, repeat in cycles, almost like scripture sung to the sea. Each whale a psalmist, each ocean a cathedral. And here's where fact slides into myth. Ancient stories speak of fish gods rising from the waters to teach humanity. But what if the gods were simply reflections of something we already knew in our bones? That the ocean carries intelligences beyond our comprehension, speaking in songs and sonar. That the ocean carries intelligences beyond our comprehension, speaking in songs and sonar, reminding us that the mind is not confined to the human skull. We look at the dolphin and see a grin. We hear the whale song and feel a haunting. But that is our projection, our mirror. The dolphin does not smile for us, nor the whale sing for our ears. They are intelligences unto themselves, minds without hands, civilizations without cities, priests of an oceanic temple we only glimpse when we dare to dive. In their brains, in their songs, in their vast migrations across the currents, dolphins and whales are not just animals. They could truly be Leviathan dispersed. Not one monster, but 1,000 minds, playful, immense, and impossibly old. They remind us that the consciousness is not a ladder with man at the top, but a sea, and in that sea we are not alone.
For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so the Son of Man will be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth.
For as Jonah was assigned to the Ninevites, so the Son of Man will be assigned to this generation.
For as Jonah was assigned to the Ninevites, so the Son of Man will be assigned to this generation.
And I saw an angel coming down out of heaven, having the key to the abyss and holding in his hand a great chain. He seized the dragon, that ancient serpent who is the devil or Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. He threw him into the abyss and locked and sealed it over him, to keep him from deceiving the nations any more until the 1,000 years were ended.
Need to ask, how do people even read the book of Revelation? Because your lens determines the shape of the monster. One of the most intriguing interpretations is called preterism. From the Latin preter, meaning past, the preterists believe that most, if not all, of Revelation already happened. The locust, the horseman, the beast, these weren't predictions of some far-off sci-fi dystopia. They were coded visions of the first century, especially the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD. In this view, Babylon the Great was Jerusalem herself. The beast was Rome and Nero. The plagues was fire, political upheaval, famine. Revelation wasn't a trailer for our future. It was a mirror of their present. Now, preterists divide into two camps. Partial preterists argue most of it has been fulfilled, but there are still cosmic promises to come. Christ's return, the resurrection. Full preterists, on the other hand, claim all of it happened back then. Even the second coming for them, we are already living in the new heaven and new earth. And yet, and here's where the ground shakes, even if Revelation was fulfilled in 70 AD, the pattern seems to echo forward. It's like music playing long after the band has left the stage. Plagues, wars, beasts rising from the sea, these archetypes repeat. They don't vanish, they haunt us. Which brings us to a small, cryptic phrase in Revelation 20, the little season. After 1,000 years of peace, the text says, Satan is released for a little season, a short time, just enough to cause mischief, but not enough to overturn the victory of God. Theologians argue endlessly. Is this symbolic of Rome's last gasp? Is it a still future tribulation? Or is it happening now? I personally believe so. I really do believe we're in this strange in-between age where the old world has fallen, but the new one hasn't quite settled. Just look at the state of the world. What if the little season is about what stirs in the abyss when the locks are broken? What if it's about the return of Leviathan, the great dragons of chaos, the creature that lurks just beneath the order of creation, waiting for the right current to rise again, but now it only has the authority to deceive? How would that world look? Maybe just like this one. Psalm 104:26 says it plainly. There go the ships, there is that Leviathan, whom thou hast made to play therein. Leviathan, in other words, is not destroyed, not erased. He is preserved, kept alive, even made for God's sport, which means that chaos was never gone during the millennial kingdom. Just sleeping, just biding its time, locked away. And our little season, the time that we're possibly living in now, is when it surfaced, wearing new masks, taking new forms. A sea god in Mesopotamia, a dragon in China, a titan in Greece, a shadow in our psychology, always the same pattern, breaking the surface of history in waves.
In sacred geometry, 6 is the number of harmony, balance, and creation. The hexagon and the Star of David are both rooted in 6. The hexagon arises naturally in the geometry of the honeycomb, symbolizing divine order woven into creation itself. 6 directions: north, south, east, west, above, below, define the cube, the totality of the physical space. Thus, 6 is the number that roots spiritual into matter. Also, when the cube is unraveled, it turns into a cross.
In the tarot, the 6th major arcana is the Lovers. On one level, it is about union, man and woman, heaven and earth, body and soul. On a deeper level, it represents a choice of alignment. Do we harmonize with divine will or fall into illusion? It also corresponds with Gemini, a mercurial sign, and Mercury is always in between. In Kabbalistic tarot attributions, the card links to Zayin, meaning sword, suggesting discernment is required for true union. Love without clarity can fall into bondage, just as harmony without truth can collapse into corruption. The 6th Sephirah is Tiferet, beauty. Tiferet is the harmonizing center uniting the divine flow from above, Keter, Chakma, and Bina, with the earthly realm below, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Mekut. It is also associated with the heart and with the image of the Messiah as the balance point of heaven and earth. In Christian mysticism, 7 is perfection, while 6 falls just short of it. 6 is the number of humanity, who were created on the 6th day in Genesis. When repeated as 666, it becomes the over-amplification of the human condition without God. Not simply imperfection, but imperfection multiplied and exalted as power. This becomes the anti-harmony, the counterfeit balance that presents itself as divine authority.
The dragon, Satan, the ancient serpent, gives authority to the beast. The beast from the sea has 7 heads and 10 horns, echoing the chaotic monster of the Old Testament, such as Leviathan. The 7 heads can be seen as 7 corrupt powers or empires, each ruling in turn. The second beast, the one from the land, appears lamb-like, imitating Christ, but speaks with the voice of the dragon, the archetype of false prophets. 666, the human number. This calls for wisdom. Let the one with understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Revelation chapter 13, verse 18. In Gematria, 666 corresponds with Neron Caesar, pointing to the Roman Empire as immediate referent. But symbolically, it is more than an emperor. It is the elevation of the human ego system as God. While 6 alone is harmony, beauty, and balance, 666 is harmony perverted, a false trinity of power, control, and corruption.
Part of the number 666 lies not just a symbol of imperfection, but a clue to the substance of life itself. Carbon, the element upon which all organic life depends, has an atomic number of 6. 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons. Carbon is the axis mundi of matter, the great backbone of creation. Every tree that rises, every beast that walks, every thought firing across your neurons owes itself to this black, humble element. Carbon is the serpent's body, endlessly coiling in chains and rings, weaving proteins and DNA. Now, if you place carbon into the esoteric frame, it becomes startling. The number of the beast in Revelation is not merely an evil mark, but a pointer to the human condition, that we are carbon-based beings. We are made of the very 666 that symbolizes imperfection, matter itself. In astrology, the 6th sign of the zodiac is Virgo. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, the planet of discernment, communication, and analysis, While Gemini, the other Mercury-ruled sign, governs the lungs and the exchange of air, Virgo rules the gut and digestive system, the very center of our assimilation, both of food and of subtle energies. The ancients believed the body mirrored the cosmos. Just as the heavens are mapped through constellations, so too does the body act as a microcosm, reflecting the order of creation. Virgo, the virgin, rules the intestines, and here lies a hidden mystery.
Intestines coil like a serpent, winding endlessly through the abdomen. Modern science confirms what ancient mystics intuited. The gut is its own kingdom, housing trillions of microbes. It communicates directly with the brain through the vagus nerve, shaping our moods, desires, and even thoughts. This is what some mystics call the inner Leviathan. Just as the great sea serpent of myth represents chaos within the deep, so too does our digestive system represent the hidden sea within us, a place of unseen power, digestion, and transformation. When this inner serpent is in harmony, we feel clarity and vitality. When it is disturbed, it can plunge us into shadow, despair, or madness. In Genesis, humanity is described as being made in the image of God. This is not merely a physical image, but a symbolic one. The axis mundi, the cosmic axis, linking heaven, earth, and the underworld, is reflected in the human body. The spine is our cosmic pillar, connecting the heavens of the mind to the depths of the gut and base. Thus, to know ourselves is to know the cosmos. Our intestines mirror the serpent of chaos. Our spine is the world tree. Our lungs are the twin cherubim guarding the breath of life. And at the center, the heart, associated with the Tiferet, and the number 6, radiates harmony like the sun. The ancients saw no separation. Man is the microcosm of the universe, and the Leviathan is not only an external monster, but also the great winding force that lives within us.
Across traditions, the serpent has always symbolized both chaos and transformation. In Christianity, the serpent of Eden tempts humanity to knowledge. In Jewish mysticism, the Leviathan rides in the deep as both enemy and secret food of the righteous. In yoga, the serpent is Kundalini, the latent spiritual energy coiled at the base of the spine. Now consider this, our own intestines coil like a serpent in the belly, winding in and out, holding a hidden sovereignty over our mood, health, and even thought. Science calls it the enteric nervous system, second brain.
Virgo, ruling the gut, teaches us the need for discernment, purification, and order. The virgin carries the wheat, symbol of digestion and separation, what is nourishing from what is waste, separating the wheat from the chaff. Pisces, its opposite, dissolves order into oceanic unity. The two fish swim in opposite directions, tethered together, just as we are tethered between body and spirit. The gut serpent of Virgo prepares us to meet the cosmic ocean of Pisces. Without grounding, the infinite swallows us. Without the infinite, the grounded life suffocates. Together, they form a living axis, one pointing inward, the other outward.
And I saw when the Lamb broke the first of the 7 seals, and it was as though the spine of the world had been opened. Out rode the horsemen, not of pasture or field, but of the inner plains where fear and power are born. The first was white, carrying a bow, crowned with the promise of conquest. The second was red, and with his great sword he split peace itself, so that brother rose against brother. The third came black, holding scales that weighed the hunger of the nations, the measure of bread and famine. And the fourth was pale green as rotting flesh, and upon it sat death, with Sheol following close behind like a shadow without end. And when the 5th seal was opened, the voices of those who had been slain cried out from beneath the altar. They asked how long, as if time itself could be compelled to answer, and they were told to rest for a little while longer, until the number was complete. And the 6th seal cracked, and the world turned inside out. The sun blackened like a sackcloth, the moon bled into a scarlet, the stars scattered like seed from a shaken hand. Mountains shifted, islands fled, kings and paupers alike hid in caves, begging the stones to fall on them, so fierce was the unveiling of the hidden order. This is not a tale of distant apocalypse, but the axis within, for each seal is a gate, and each horseman rides not only across history, but across the chambers of the human heart. What is unsealed in the heavens is mirrored in the marrow of our bones.
The human body is a reflection of the axis mundi, the cosmic pillar connecting heaven, earth, and the underworld. The spine is the world tree, the ladder of Jacob, the cosmic Mount Meru. At its base coils Kundalini, the serpent energy waiting to ascend. As it rises, it pierces the chakras, the 7 heads of the beast, now redeemed, transfigured into the 7 seals of revelation. As it rises, it pierces the chakras, the 7 heads of the beast, now redeemed, transfigured into the 7 seals of revelation, opened one by one. At the crown, the serpent unites with the divine, just as Leviathan is said in Jewish Midrash to be served at the end of the days as the feast of the righteous. In this light, the Leviathan is not merely an outer monster, but the inner force of transformation. The chaos that, when digested, becomes wisdom. This is not a cosmic zoo of moral dualism, but a map for consciousness. The demons of the Goetia are not villains to be expelled, so much as shadows to be understood, and the angels of the Shem are not distant saviors so much as beacons of what we might become. The zodiac signs, likewise, are not literal fates carved into stone, but sigils, symbols forged by the ancients, keys for inner work. And then there's Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer, the sign that doesn't quite fit, held in the mythic hand of Asclepius, the healer, the man who raised the dead by the serpent's cunning. He stands between Sagittarius and Scorpio, if you use the sidereal map. He's the teacher with the serpent staff. Now pause. Do you see how Leviathan, the serpent of the deep, reappears here? The same monstrous, chaotic power coiled beneath the world, tugged at by human consciousness. Ophiuchus bears it, the teacher who's wounded and also healed. In Christian tradition, among the 12 apostles, Jesus is more than just one among them. He is the teacher, the healer, the resurrection. He is God in flesh, the one who raises the dead, who tames the serpent, just like his father. When you pull in Leviathan with a hook, or tie down his tongue with a rope, will he make a covenant with you, so that you may take him as a servant forever. Think of Ophiuchus as a crack in the zodiacal system. So rigid are the 12 signs, so exact the dogmatic astrologers, that introducing the snake bearer feels like sacrilege. But perhaps that is the point, the end that begins, the teacher who stands outside the system to reveal it. Asclepius was that figure in myth. Jesus is that figure in Christianity. Both heal, both raise the dead, both deal with serpents, both walk between the worlds. In the symbolism, Ophiuchus is not an alternate zodiac sign. He is the serpent bearer, the Leviathan tamer, the one who bears the chaos, so it may feed transformation. If the Leviathan is the great beast of the deep, Ophiuchus is the hand that holds the chain. Jesus Christ in Christian traditions is the teacher among the 12, often called the Lamb, the Light, the Healer. Apollo, in Greek myth, the god of sun, prophecy, healing, and law. Asclepius, likewise, god of healing, resurrector of the dead. These are all beings tied to light, knowledge, sovereignty over chaos. When the mythic map includes Ophiuchus, when the serpent bearer becomes visible, then the tale of Leviathan resurfaces not as foe but as test, a chaotic force that only the true healer can integrate. The Leviathan within and without, the abyss and the teacher walking the margin. So let us return to the axis mundi, the tree of life, the spine, the body, made in the image of God. We have Virgo and Pisces, one grounding the serpent in the gut, the other dissolving self in the ocean. We have the Shem, the Goetia demons, the zodiac signs, and then the eruption, or irruption, of Ophiuchus and its serpent. The Leviathan is the great serpent below the surface, in the gut, in the deep sea, in the psyche. Ophiuchus is the hand that holds the serpent, the energy of transformation that turns chaos into order, death into resurrection, the teacher that steps out of the 12 to show the truth beyond structure. The way most astrologers practice is not based in the hard geometry of the heavens, and that is no crime. Symbols are not meant to be fixed in stone, but held in a magician's lens. The zodiac ceases to be a calendar of planets and celestial bodies and becomes something stranger, older, a map of consciousness, a sigil stretched across the night sky. It is not the all-encompassing truth. It is a pattern, a living riddle, which holds its merit only when entered with understanding. and with the humility to know that astronomically, there's always more than the eye can see. Am I saying the celestial heavens influence us? Of course I am. I've already spoken of this in my last telling, Lights in the Sky. Am I saying we understand it? No, I am not. We stand at the edge of the ocean and the stars. What follows in this closing section is not a map to take literally, but a story to be walked through mystically. As one walks through a dream and finds it has left a mark on walking life. Picture the wheel of the zodiac not as a static chart, but as a living labyrinth. Each sign is a chamber, each polarity a threshold, and among them, none speaks so clearly of human's path as Virgo and Pisces, the axes of body and soul. Virgo, the healer, rules the gut, the winding serpent within us. Your intestines, endlessly coiling, endlessly digesting, are the axis mundi of your flesh, a serpent in your belly, whispering moods, steering your health, teaching you through hunger and fullness, pain and relief. Virgo says, before you ascend, you must descend into the body. Before spirit, you must master digestion, the art of turning matter into life. Pisces, opposite, is the ocean, the place where the self dissolves, where boundaries blur into mist and tide, where we remember the vastness from which we came. Pisces says the end of the journey is not perfection, but surrender, not mastery, but dissolution. We are drops returning to the sea. But then comes Revelation's little season. The serpent, bound for 1,000 years, is released once more. The Leviathan rises not as punishment, but as test. Can humanity face its shadow without being swallowed whole? Can we hold both Virgo's serpent and Pisces' ocean without splitting apart? The little season is not about doom, it is about integration. It is here between Virgo's preparation and Pisces' dissolution that the forgotten sign appears, Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer. Ophiuchus does not sit comfortably in the zodiac. Like the number 13 usually does through superstition, it unsettles the order. 12 signs, 12 apostles, 12 tribes, tidy, complete. But then comes the snake tamer. Jesus at the table, not a disciple, but the teacher, the healer, the one who breaks the pattern. Ophiuchus is that disruption carrying the serpent, not as curse, but as cure. In myth, he is Asclepius, the healer who learned the secret of resurrection from the serpent itself. In symbol, he is Christ, trampling the dragon and raising the dead. In psyche, he's the figure who bears chaos without being devoured by it. Ophiuchus is the bridge between Virgo's healer and Pisces' mystic, between serpent and sea. And here is the hidden key. Leviathan, the beast of the deep, is not simply to be slain. The serpent is digestion, knowledge, and power. The sea is the solution, collective destiny, soul. Ophiuchus shows us that the path is not to destroy the serpent, but to bear it, to wind it around the staff, to use it as medicine, to walk with chaos at your side rather than against it. The little season then is not an evil time, it is the moment when humanity must choose to deny the serpent and drown in the sea, or to bear the serpent and cross the waters into the next age. This is why Ophiuchus drives astrologers mad, why it unsettles orthodoxy. It is the forgotten sign, the Christ among the 12, the serpent bearer, who reveals the asymmetry of the wheel. It shows that the zodiac itself is not to be taken literally, but it is a sigil, a living map of descent and return, body and soul, serpent, sea, and cosmos. And so, we arrive at the final paradox, that humanity is both Virgo and Pisces, both healer and mystic, in service, yet capable of freedom. But the test of the little season is Ophiuchian, whether we can hold the serpent without fear and the sea without drowning. Because only then, only when we carry the Leviathan as staff and not as chain, will we walk upon the waters like Christ.